And we roll along. Hopefully, you're having a good Saturday and making a little bit of money along the way. Jake Nowicker, Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. And now let's bring some sense into the show. Our good friend from Cageside Press. He is Eddie Law. Eddie, the fights took place earlier today in Saudi Arabia. Robert Whitaker in the main event with a knockout. Still at the top of his game. How surprised would you be if maybe in the next calendar year we're talking about Robert Whitaker as the champion?
Not surprised at all. At all. If you look at what Robert Whitaker has done since he's gotten into the UFC, when he first came in, he looked very nervous when he fought. He was, tentative, would not throw too much. Fast forward to championship Robert Whitaker. Everything is a combo. Everything has something at the end of it that's going to sting. The first two are not to hurt you. The first two are to block your vision. And here comes that head kick. Enjoy that. And Ikram felt all of that today. All of it.
What do you think makes sense next? Like, should he just get to sit by as the backup guy? A lot of the Twitter buzz after this is Sean Strickland and him matchup for number one contender. What makes the most sense to you?
Well, the next title fight, Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, is in Perth. I think it's UFC 305. So if you go those two, right, and then it's Sean Strickland and Robert Whitaker. Those are the main four guys that should be in that round robin of titles. Now, Sean Strickland, he's been, he just fought. He told everybody, I'm waiting. I'm not taking any more fights. I'm waiting for my title shot. If he sticks to that, then we're looking at Strickland possibly getting the winner of that one, right? Robert Whitaker sits pretty. He already said in the post-fight and in the press conference, like maybe 20 minutes ago, I'm willing to be the backup for that Izzy Dricus fight. So, and Dana said, quote, we'd love to have him. So let's say we go with that plan. A lot of the guys that are backups don't get the next title shot. Like it's sad to see, but those guys, they'll cut weight to come in, they'll weigh in for the backup. You don't need them. They don't get the next one. So what I'm thinking is going to happen, we're going to get Sean Strickland next. And if I'm Robert Whitaker, I wait to see what happens.
I'm looking at the odds, Eddie, right in front of me for that Adesanya du Plessis fight. Adesanya, the favorite, minus 185. You can get the champion as an underdog at plus 145. Are you surprised that Izzy's the favorite? And where's your money going that night?
I'm a little surprised he's the favorite. Because why do we keep doubting these guys that just will themselves to winning? Dricus du Plessis, you can hate him all you want to, people. He's good. He's good. Who else do you know looks tired at the beginning of round one and is pushing like a maniac in rounds 4 and 5? Nobody. Dricus du Plessis is very, very good at what he does. And that fight, as far as like who's the favorite, they're taking Izzy, it's not, he lives in New Zealand, so they're taking Izzy across the water from his island, right? They're taking Izzy with the fan, the fan support in his home, in his home area, and they're doubting Dricus du Plessis again. So I'm a little surprised he's a favorite, but I'm not surprised that he's only that much of a favorite because that's not a huge favorite number, I don't think.
So out of the big news of the week, obviously we got to see Conor McGregor's toe and his injury. Just what has been your big picture reaction to all this? The news, the conspiracies. Chael Sonnen says he was in rehab, so he's got to come out and show why he's out. But we've seen him fight through worse stuff before. Like, do you fault him for not going through this Michael Chandler fight, or can you not fault him because he's obviously in a kind of a must-win situation?
Well, you can kind of go two ways with that. I personally don't fault him because at his age, how long he's been in the game, his position in the game, how long he's been out since he got injured, it's kind of difficult to ask him to risk all that he has on a broken toe, come in, fully healthy. On the other hand, Conor McGregor wrote a lot of checks in these last, 10 years? RDA, or Rafael dos Anjos, who broke his foot before UFC 196, which, if you remember, Nate Diaz stepped up and beat Conor McGregor. After he broke his foot, Conor said, ice and ibuprofen, something like that. So it took RDA, 8-9 years? RDA got his back. If you guys go look at his Twitter, it's hilarious. But he cashed a lot of, he wrote a lot of checks, and he can't cash them because now he looks like a giant hypocrite. But in terms of just as a fighter, I don't fault him whatsoever. If I'm him, hey, man, I'm the cash cow. Everyone wants to fight me anyway. Michael Chandler, if I say you're going to wait, you're going to wait.
I think Chandler's going to beat him up if and when we see that fight. But I'm actually more curious, if Conor wins, what do you think is the biggest possible fight they could make after that? Because I'm thinking O'Malley, but that probably couldn't happen because of weight class. Max is still out there. Poirier's out there. Nate Diaz is out there. Islam is out there. Like, it just dream world because it's sports radio and it's fun. If Conor comes back and if he wins, what's the biggest possible next fight for him?
Okay, if that fight still happens at 170 pounds, you give him whoever the welterweight champion is. If it's a striker, you don't want to give him Bilal. I think if it's Leon somehow and he comes back just in time and the timing matches up, I give him Leon. But you're talking juicy. You want a real juicy fight? Give me Max Holloway that BMF belt. Boy, that is a huge. And look, we started off with BMF belt being a joke, and it was kind of a joke. Let's be honest, Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje kind of gave us some legs, kind of gave us some back. Now we all kind of want to see a BMF belt fight, especially after Max Holloway doing the Hawaiian Warrior thing, pointing down. Let's go, staying right in the middle. Can you imagine? 5th round, main event, wherever. Let's just say Madison Square Garden, Vegas. They're fighting. They're going back and forth. Max Holloway goes, "Let's go." Conor goes, "Yeah, I'm here for it." Ooh, tell me that don't. I got chills, bro. I got chills right now.
So do I. And remember, they fought like 20 years ago. I'd love to see that one go down again.
And Max was the baby. Max was the baby, and Conor came in with a mindset of like he just came with a mindset, I'm gonna kill everybody. That's how he went with it. And he went in and he played with Max Holloway. He kicked his legs like crazy. Like that whole fight was crazy. Now Max Holloway, completely different fighter now. I would love to see it.
Any part of you that thinks that Michael Chandler's got to take another fight? Because it was weird hearing Dana in the post-fight today not really committing to giving Conor McGregor a date. Like they say, I'm going to make sure he's 100% before we do this again. I'm sure that they got a lot of pissed off customers next week who are going to Vegas. So is there a time where Michael Chandler's just got to stay active at some point, or do you feel like he just stays on the sidelines?
He's too far in, man. He's way too deep into this now. Every single time this fight's gotten pushed, 2-3 times now. For a month, we've known the fight was made. We just didn't know when. Then we find out when. Conor gets hurt. They keep pushing it. Now Michael Chandler's going to go keep selling his tequila and hope that Dana White doesn't change his mind.
We also, as we're talking about fighters that are pulling out, Khamzat Chimaev, don't know exactly how serious the whole thing is. When it comes to him in the octagon, how would you quantify him? Good fighter, great fighter? We still don't know.
We still don't know. We still don't know. The matchups haven't been there. I mean, he was destroying everybody. He fought like back-to-back weeks, years when he first got in the UFC, and then he fights a fellow named Gilbert Burns, who we all know is a warrior. I mean, Gilbert Burns is a tough guy, and I can't remember if they went the distance or not, but that was a really good fight.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns gave him a ton of problems. Yeah, and then he fights Kamaru Usman off the couch. Okay, and again, not an impressive fight from Khamzat at all. And everyone's like, "Oh, well, Usman's a champion, whatever." I don't know if you guys know this. Kamaru Usman's knees are so bad, he has trouble like running. Okay, if you're telling me he came off the couch in his condition that he is with his knees, and and every fighter's beat up, but still, and took it to Khamzat Chimaev, who's a young guy and everything. It's we still don't know what we have with him. We're all kind of hoping to see him one day in a big fight where he finally shows us who he is, and we just haven't gotten that yet.
Out of today's card, besides Robert Whittaker's performance, who impressed you most? Was it Shah Magomedov? Was it Ozdemir? Like, who do you think stole the show today outside of Bobby Knuckles?
Oh, Bobby Knuckles. That was nasty. I like Shara. Shara had to deal with three different opponents. He was supposed to have I can't remember the two fellows' names. I'm sorry, but Antonio Trocoli was supposed to fight Ikram last week. Ikram was to call for the main event. They called, Antonio like, "Hey man, we got one guy for you if you want it." He said, "Yeah, let's go." And when you physically see him, he is as big as everyone says he is. He looks like Alex Pereira, right? He's huge. You wonder how he makes the weight. But for Shara to have to figure out that puzzle, not having any tape on this guy pretty much, and having to deal with the size differences and everything, I was very impressed with the fact that he was able to finish the fight. But it's another guy we don't really know what we have with him. We really don't. But I think he's going to get a big fight next, and we're going to find out.
Talk a little fighting with our guy Eddie Law of Cageside Press here. Tapped out on the BetQL network. You mentioned Alex Pereira. He's in the main event next week against Yuri Prochazka, Part 2. I don't know why, but I'm kind of leaning Yuri. Kind of thinking maybe one of those elbows catches him and knocks him out. Am I crazy?
No. Yuri is a dangerous guy. There's a few names that if I was a fighter, and light heavyweight especially, there's a few names I wouldn't touch in short notice. He's one of them. That guy's a savage. When fighters say, I'm always training, he's seriously always training, right? He's always in. If you guys remember when he injured his shoulder, when he had to drop the what do you call it? The belt.
Yeah.
like he had been training. Like he's going. So it's not a crazy idea at all. But Poatan is on a roll, man. This guy, he's got swagger, he's got power, he's got support. He was in Australia. He got the call for UFC 303. He was in Australia doing stuff for sponsors. They called him. He goes, "Yeah, I'll take it, Chama." Yeah, and then gets in the airport, books it back home, start training again. And you got to remember, he's coached by Glover Teixeira, who is as much as, in my opinion, as good as a coach as anybody else. So I'm still leaning Poatan on that fight. But if you told me I'm putting this much money on Yuri, I'd be like, I don't blame you.
Any part of you that feels bad for Bejeda, because we were talking about this a little bit last week, like his last two main events have been, the whole kicked around 300, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's Bejeda versus Jamal Hill, even though it's an awesome fight. Everybody was expecting this super fight for 300. Then he's got to replace McGregor. He's also on the card with the knockout of the year with Holloway. But is there some time where you feel like this guy could skyrocket? Because his run right now, I feel like he could be an even bigger star than probably he is already if he got like the appropriate time of people not being disappointed that it's him fighting other than bigger stars.
So on the first one, right? So he comes in at 300, takes on Jamal Hill. Everyone was disappointed in that matchup, and I hate to say it because it's Jamal Hill, right? Everyone knows what Poatan could do, right? He put Izzy out. And then he got put out by Izzy, but he put Sean Strickland out, all these guys, right? So what you get with Alex Pereira. Jamal Hill, I looked at it like, I don't know if I want to see that guy. Not to mention, he no offense, Jamal, if you're watching, my bad, dude, but he kind of makes himself unlikable on YouTube and with stuff he says on social media. It's hard to like the guy if you're not a hardcore fan or a hardcore Hill fan. So, on that end, I get that. This fight is because he's replacing Conor McGregor. But if you look at it just as, unbiased, just from the outside looking in, he's as gangster as anybody. Like that. I mean, come on, man. Like 300, yeah, I'll do it. 303, yeah, I'll do it. Just like that, super chill.
I agree with you, Jamal Hill. Even when they announced that fight, I was like, he's never really done it for me too much. A guy that is very likable and a guy that I have a man crush on. And we'll get you out of here with this question, Eddie. Is Brian Ortega is on the card next week, also against Diego Lopez. That is absolute killer versus killer. Who you put your money on?
Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez is people don't understand how good he really is. Look at the guys. Look at the girls he's training with. Alexa Grasso, Irene Aldana, and over at that Lobo gym in Mexico. I mean, the guy went from Brazil to Mexico and stuck there. When he walked out in his last fight, he walked out to a Mexican rap song, but basically saying he's like, I'm from Mexico and I rep my flag. Like he's in that, not just the country, but the culture, right? So when you take his skill set, what he did against Movsar Evloev on short notice, and I think that was in the UK. I want to say, sure, he lost by decision, but he had Movsar in trouble a couple times at least. So that's a great fight. And then Brian Ortega, we know what we get with Brian Ortega. You're either going to get someone that's going to strangle somebody, or you're going to get that tough Mexican dog who's going to throw hands with anybody.
Love me some T-City. And if I had hair, I think I'd try to do what he does, but those days are long behind me. Eddie Law from Cageside Press, one of our favorite guests joining us here on Tapped Out. Thanks, Eddie. Enjoy your night, man.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Who do you like in that Ortega fight, PT? That is, that's a finisher. I can tell you that much. That thing is not going the distance. I just don't know who to put my money on.
Yeah, the only thing that worried me a little bit is Ortega talking this week that, win or lose, he's ready to jump ship from the division. He's ready to move on and go to 155. That always has me like a little bit, all right, do you have your eye on this one? Because this kid is, you're going up against this young killer who's, trying to make himself on your name, and you're already got your eyes on the future plan. That being said, Ortega looks fantastic his last time out. I mean, he took those 2 years off and looked really at the peak of his powers. So I'm not totally on Lopez yet, but I'm leaning that.
The only thing that I don't like about Brian Ortega is his inactivity. That's it. Like, so to hear you say that he's talking about jumping divisions and all that, dude, let's just fight a few times in a year. Stay healthy, try to get that belt, and then move on. But that's my only complaint when it comes to him, is that I just want to see him in the octagon a little bit more. I think I'm leaning toward Ortega by sub. We'll get into that whole entire card a little bit later on as the show rolls on. You asked Eddie what what fighter he was most impressed with today in Saudi outside of Bobby Knuckles. Who are you most impressed with outside of Robert Whittaker today?
I agree with him. I think I think Sharo Magomedov probably is the guy, because I think he's the hot new thing coming out of that. It is interesting because of his eye. I guess they're going to basically have him as an overseas fighter. But I think, yeah, like we said, he's got the look. My son thinks he's a murderer. I think he's playing a bad guy in a movie. That guy seems like he does have Bo Nickel tweeting about him. So, maybe he's got another opponent going there. I think that'd be a fun matchup. I don't know if Bo is joking or not. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's, from my standpoint, I thought that he really was the guy that everyone's going to be talking about this outside of Whittaker, even though Volkov had a really, really great performance.